Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to dive into a topic that I like to call the paid off home paradox. I'm Stephen McFarlane, author of Breaking Free from the 401k Trap. For some, paying off your home mortgage is the ultimate financial milestone. I mean, it's a sign of stability, success, discipline, right? Sometimes it takes 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So it certainly takes a lot of discipline. And there's tremendous peace associated with it. There's definitely a level of peace owning your home outright. However, there's another part to this that we don't discuss enough. Having your paid off home, it does provide a level of security from a financial perspective. However, this security comes with potential of hiding a lack of financial freedom. Because if most of your wealth is trapped within the walls in which you live in, it can't work for you. It can't produce income. It cannot create freedom. So today, let's talk about the paid off home paradox. How it's certainly a blessing, however, it's also a limitation. So when we finally paid off our home, at that point, it was one of the most meaningful milestones in our financial journey. And I'm sure you who have also done the same likely feel the same way. And you who have not, hey, keep chugging along. If that's something that's indeed your goal, great. I want you to accomplish that goal. And I will tell you that at that time, the mortgage was our biggest line item that we had to account for on a monthly basis. When every payment went out the door, it really felt as if, hey, we're working, to be paying someone else, and understanding a lot of it was interest that we were paying. And then finally, poof, it was gone. Certainly, it brought about a sense of accomplishment, a sense of peace, a sense of excitement and the realism that's finally paid off. No lender, no debt, no monthly pressure, though it got less and less near the end. But, when you have no monthly pressure to make that additional payment, it really is a freeing experience. And getting to that point, Proverbs 22:7 really echoed in our minds. The borrower is slave to the lender. So, yes, I understood. You pay that off, you get a level of additional freedom. However, to be totally frank, later on, something else became very clear. And it sounds somewhat elementary, but to be honest, our house wasn't paying us, and your house won't pay you. It was simply sitting there, holding value, yes, which is important, but producing income, no. So that brings up the topic of, really just thinking about what home equity actually is. One could argue that home equity is a level of wealth. However, it's wealth that's non liquid. And that really means that you can't easily use that equity to pay for unexpected life events, generosity, or other opportunities that may come up. And for many families, and at that time, but not anymore, us included, I'm sure many more, about 50% of their net worth is tied up in their home equity. So even with a paid off house, if other assets you have are not producing cash flow, you likely still feel the financial pressure. Because with your house, property tax still comes due, insurance bills, they're still due. There's still maintenance that needs to be done, and there's still general things that just keep costing you money associated with your home and other aspects of life. To really sum it up, freedom does not come from eliminating every bill, that it comes from having cash flow that enables you to pay every bill. So here's a question that I'm sure you would be interested in that also is of interest to us. The question is, what if our home equity, your home equity, is used to purchase many separate cash flowing assets? How would that change your life? How would things be different? Instead of having one home that provides peace, what if you're in a situation where you have three or four separate assets that provide you monthly income, and as a result, peace as well? That's really the heart of the paradox. Security without income still requires work, and security without peace still causes a level of stress or anxiety in one's life. And in this situation, wisdom is being able to understand how to manage the two. Handling both from the perspective that you are potentially still having to exchange your time for income, as opposed to not having to exchange your time but still having the income and reduce stress. And just so we're all on the same page, just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with having a paid off home. Nothing. For many, that stability is foundational. However, if most of your wealth is locked up in your paid off home, it's important to be aware of the fact that you could be likely limiting your ability to invest, to create cash flow, to adapt to opportunities, to fund what you're called to do in life, whatever that is, to fund your calling, and to bless others generously. And the goal is not to undo the peace that you have acquired from paying off your home. The goal is to also build cash flow alongside your paid off home. So, the whole thing about freedom, financial freedom, freedom doesn't come from eliminating your debts. Freedom comes from having assets that pay you and pay for the things that support your lifestyle. And referring to those assets that pay you, several examples exist. Talk about having a business, dividend producing stocks, income from rental properties, or even digital or creative products that could potentially create cash flow for you around the clock. And none of these are get rich quick strategies. These are things that you build over time. And these things really give you the ability to say, yes, I could have a job, a job, or I could choose not to have a job or a standard 9 to 5 type schedule. And that is true financial freedom. So if you paid off your home, celebrate it. That's awesome. That's great. You've already accomplished something remarkable. Now the question becomes, how can your wealth begin working for you? Not out of greed, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. The purpose of being able to use your time for your family, support your health, support service to your community, support your calling, your ministry, to rest, and to build your legacy. So freedom isn't measured in how little we owe, but how freely we can live. A paid off home, it's a blessing, but it's not the finish line. The next phase is building cash flow. So your life is funded not by effort, but by the wisdom, creative ability, and various strengths that God has given you. The next phase is about building cash flow. So your life really isn't funded by your various labors, but by the assets that God has given you the wisdom to acquire and steward. If this message encouraged you, please like it. Please share it with someone else that it could add value to. And also, just wanted to make sure that you're aware that this is all really from chapter 5 of my book, Breaking Free from the 401k Trap. So if you want to get ahead and be able to see what I'm going to be sharing in the next videos, get the book or not get the book and stand by, and you will get all the information from the books from these videos. Wish you the best. God bless.